What happened? What's up, everybody? Trinity here, and welcome back to this. Oh no. Am I dropping frames? What's up, everybody? Trinity here, and welcome back to the Second Street Marvel. I hope you're all having a very good day today. Today, we are here going to do this live stream. If there's any problems with the audio or anything, guys, please let me know down in the comments below. Yeah, I'm sorry we started a couple of minutes late, but I'm going to have a guest joining us today. We have my guest here. You can go ahead and introduce yourself if you would like.
Hello, everybody. It's Gray. I'm sure y'all know me from the chat.
Yes. Well, hopefully everybody knows you. Oh, no. Here we go. Here we go with Streamlabs. Oh no, here we go. Gotta love this thing. Streamlabs is so weird. What is going on, Streamlabs? Oh man. Okay, so I believe everything should be working here, but for some reason, okay. So yes, everybody who's here while I'm working on this here on the background, I just wanted to let you all know I wanted to start this. I wanted to start these kind of these discussions. This new stream getting people together. Oh no. Okay, there we go. I wanted to start putting these streams together. Dang it. I apologize about that. I don't even think your audio was on. Yeah, it
Oh,
should be good to go now. Everybody, welcome to the show. Again, you guys know me. My name is Trinity. Here today with our special guest, Gray, as many of you may know from the chats. If you guys ever join the Den of Nerds on the live chats or anything like that, you've probably seen her around in the chats.
hello, everyone.
All right. And okay, thank you. And as I said, everybody, if you are here in the chats, please let me know if there's any audio problems or anything like that. Sometimes it's kind of hard to know how those are going as you're going through the live show. But I wanted to start this show here, and I didn't know what to call it. I just decided to call it Nerd Therapy. I decided to call it Nerd Therapy because, just in so many of the chats and so many of the things that we do, we get out there and all this stuff that we love in the world. Like, it's we love these comic books, we love these movies. I absolutely love music, and these are very expressive mediums. And we know that lately, it seems like over the last handful of years, comic books and movies have really gone more of a political, been more brought into kind of these political realms. For some reason, it kind of gets dragged in because you got the pop culture, which affects culture, and then everything else. And that's why I wanted to kind of bring some guests on and talk about these things, because I wanted to get guests on here who are different than me, who don't think the exact same as me, and have different thoughts. And maybe I started this for the most part because I know a lot of people out there would feel like they don't want to express themselves because they think that maybe other people don't agree with them, or the backlash and things like that. And oftentimes I think that it seems like a lot of us end up having kind of the same, really at the end of the day we all feel the same about a lot of things, just little subtle nuances, more so than the fact that we can't be friends and just disagree about things. Okay. Oh no. Okay. I'm not sure if that's okay. There we go. So anyway, let's see who all we got here. I want to say what's up to everybody in the chats. We got Polyhedral Paradise became a member. RC Scott is in the house. Eric Heine, Captain Pennsylvania. Mike Porter is in the house. Fanjecture is here. Trinity Late Shocker. Yeah, I meant to make it for. You guys know I always go like 5 after, and yeah, I made it a little late. I wonder, Adam. I wonder if he timed you out. Oh man. Gray has an echo. Okay, I was gonna say that might be on my
Do I
end.
still
That's coming through. For that reason. Okay. Wayne says, "Yo, what's up, Wayne?" Everybody is saying, "What's up?" Okay. Hopefully that got taken care of now. So anyway, if you would like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Gray.
just a fellow nerd in the Seattle area. I play Dungeons and Dragons. So with the whole lockdown, I had to learn to do it online, and now I have a much more of an online presence to be able to have a life.
All right, all right, yeah. Hey, I totally understand. Um, Now, when it comes to what else is your place in like the nerd sphere? Like, what kinds of other things are you into besides like the Dungeons and Dragons?
So I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm huge into Star Wars, more so than novels and Clone Wars, but huge into Star Wars. My did you just ask what my views were that usually are what people aren't into?
I figure we'll probably we'll venture into that as we go along because I think
Uh,
I mean right off the bat I mean that kind of brings us all together
That's
already
fine.
because we're talking about MCU, Star Wars, and
You were breaking
we don't even
up
need to get
just
started on
5 minutes.
D&D. We already know there's some people who will get crazy and fight about that. But yeah, and the thing is, because being a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we know that the Marvel Cinematic Universe does not tend to do things the same as the comic books do, and that can be a major issue for a lot of people. Something that I totally get. And what are your feelings on some of those things, like as far as like the movies having to follow comic books and things like that?
Well, so um comic books, lots of new comic books, lots of old comic books. The old comic books follow an old style from life, and that's not really my cup of tea. So when they alter things to be more modern and to encompass a more wider range of people, I'm all for
Mm-hmm.
it.
And exactly how exactly do you mean in that scope? Like how exactly do you mean? Are you talking about the films or the comic books there?
Yeah, I'm specifically talking about films and stuff. People get, like gender swapping, racial swapping, and stuff like that. I don't have any quarrels with
Okay.
that. Um, I'm happy for people to have more of an opportunity.
Okay. I can understand that. And for me, I'm not really it's not a big deal for me. I get why it would be for a lot of people because people. I mean, like I'm invested in a lot of these comic books and things like that. And there's people I will guarantee you that are far more heavily invested in all of these movies and these properties than I am. But I do totally understand the argument when hearing people talk about like the race swapping and the gender swapping on characters. I totally get the argument, and I think for me, I don't find it as a big deal as long as it's something that's done well, and there's and in the movie they're not having to beat you over the head with some sort of a point, considering that it's something that they're doing in the first place by making some of these changes to these these classic characters, I guess more so because most people are used to seeing them depicted that way. So when they see it changed on screen, it's quite different and can be a shock, off-putting, and oftentimes it makes people upset. Again, to which I totally get. Um, Again, my thing isn't necessarily that they do it. It just seems like because more and more they do it more than anything. And I know one of the common arguments out there seems to be, well, it's a different universe. It's the movies. It's not the comics. To which I honestly kind of feel that's kind of a weak argument as well. Just as much as I mean, it really depends on where you're standing on as if that's as weak of an argument just as just make up new stories if anything or anything when it comes to the movies to differ from the comic books. How do you feel about that?
Well, in the realm of things from written down on paper to put in movies, like even novels don't follow the exactness
Right.
because they have somebody rewrite it to fit a movie script, so everything gets changed from novels to cinema. And so I don't see the big deal when that happens in the comic realm of things either.
Mm-hmm. So like okay, let's start with Captain Marvel. I'm guessing you've seen Captain Marvel if you like the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes, I'm a huge Captain Marvel
Okay.
fan.
And have you ever read any of the comic books prior to the film coming out?
No, so there's the difference with me. I when I was younger and all growing up, I've never had time, money, or a way to be into
Mm-hmm.
comic books. It just didn't happen. My life wasn't that, didn't fit that realm of things. And so now as an adult, I get more into it.
Okay.
So if my opinion on the comics can't be as strong because I didn't grow up reading them. I grew up watching X-Men in the 90s and Spider-Man, the old ones,
Right.
the animated
Mm-hmm.
ones.
Okay, so you're and I get that because believe me when I say, especially even when we'd have been growing up, because I'm in my 40s, I'm in my early 40s, is comic books are kind of
Me too.
expensive, especially nowadays. So
And if you have kids,
yes, yes,
they're
definitely. Yeah, as I'm saying, I've got three kids myself, so I totally understand that too. And yeah, it is kind of nice as adults that we get to have our own money to spend and invest in the things that we enjoy. Well, of course, kids too. But and so would you say, do you read any comics currently? Like, are you into the comic realm of things at all?
I'm reading all the X-Men. I'm behind. There's a lot of X-Men, all the new ones, Marauders and Excalibur and
Yes.
all of them. I read all the Kylo Ren, the Dark Crystal, Picard. Um, oh, Bounty Hunters. I think
Yeah.
it's Bounty Hunters, the new Star one. Oh, it started the new Afra series. I have read the whole Kanan series. I have all the previous Darth Vader ones. I'm not caught up on those either, but I do own them and I'm working on
Okay.
them. So I'm really attempting to get caught up in the comic
Okay.
world.
And how long have you? How long has it been since you started kind of diving more into the comic book realm of things?
Oh, that's only been a year.
Okay.
So not
Okay,
long.
well, hey, that's not too bad because like me, like I was into it when I was younger, and then I just got back into it about 2 years ago, just a little over 2 years ago. It was at a time after I had crashed my bicycle, and I was basically sitting at home for 10 days before I got back on my bike. And in the meantime, I was like, I'm kind of bored, I was watching the MCU movies, getting these theory videos texted to me from my friend. Um, and I was like, I'm just gonna go read some comic books. And I started just getting into it. LB is here with a $2 super chat. Thank you so much, LB, for being here. Greatly appreciated. Maybe I don't know. Maybe this thing didn't do what it was supposed to do with the chat thing. I don't know if LB, but yeah, all it's all good. Now the thing is, I just got back into it 2 years ago. Kind of started reading the books and everything like that again, and I kind of what got me back into reading comic books was the movies, and I'll tell you that's something that's actually very rare. Most people don't go from watching the movies in the MCU to reading comic books. I honestly can't even say that it's the other way around. That most people go from comic books to the movies, because most of the people that I know that read the comic books don't really enjoy the movies so much. So that's not that's it sounds like you got like as far as your experience, your adult experience, especially of comic books, is kind of I mean not really much shorter than what mine has been, as far as that's concerned. So I'm definitely kind of there with you in that like I'm somewhat basically newer back into this, so I am myself am not fully invested in a lot of these characters. I mean I grew up watching some of them, but what how do you feel about so not having read the Captain Marvel comic book ever? How did you feel about the movie, and do you know anything about the roots of the comic book?
So, I've listened to all there's a bunch going on around Captain Marvel, and I get everybody's point of view. Just because I have a different point of view doesn't mean I knock anyone's point of view. I've watched many videos. I get why people do not like Captain Marvel. I'm full understanding of that. Personally, I love
Right.
it. I grew up watching Lamb Chop and then having only three stations and only one came in the wintertime. So I don't really complain too much about what I see on
Right.
TV because it's better than what I ever got as I was growing up. So, yeah, I love the movies. I love
Right.
them.
And that's like me. Like I watched the Captain Marvel movie, and I watch it. I'm like, for the movie itself as a movie, it's not too bad. It's decent. Like I've watched it. So like I went to the theater. I seen it 3 times at the theater. You know, I I bought it when it came out on on DVD. I've got it. And I've watched it. I'm telling you, I've watched it quite a bit. I'm like, it's not a terrible movie in the movie that it is. Now,
No, it's a
yeah,
watch.
and for the like for as far as like the comic book is concerned, I totally get that because I've often joked what they did when they made this movie was they read a couple of Captain Marvel comic books, tossed them out the window, and said, "Okay, let's make a movie." Um, because from what I read, obviously, they got rid of like the original Marvel altogether. Didn't even mention him, and then we get in, and we just get Carol Danvers Captain Marvel, and it makes a lot of people upset. But one of the things that I've noticed about the movie is the Captain Marvel that I know that I read about, which was the Carol Danvers Captain Marvel since it started, is that movie seems to be like the most comic accurate to the Carol Danvers Captain Marvel comic book than most of the other comics seem to be. So it holds to that, but it is kind of somewhat of a newer comic book. So I'm kind of familiar with that more so than the previous stuff. So I totally understand people who were invested in the series before, like with the original Marvel and things like that. To me, it makes sense why people would be upset about that when it comes to something like that, especially having not even given the not even the tip of the hat to the original Marvel character. And not only did they just bring in Carol Danvers Captain Marvel, they even took the original Marvel and gender swapped him as well. And I remember when we were at the movie theater, when we left the movie theater, even my wife was kind of like, "There's just like an awful lot of women in that movie." And she didn't say it as a bad thing. She just kind of like, it's weird, just kind of weird to her.
Yeah, I don't need a ton of women, like the whole female group, just everybody being turned into females. I don't need
Right.
that. I'm happy that Wonder Woman's not a old secretary anymore,
Yeah.
stuff like that. It comes off it comes off wrong, and people, I just like that people have the females have more say in it and more parts. I don't think they need to monopolize it by any means.
Right.
But growing up a kid watching all the comic book movies and not fitting into where I lived at all, and watching that, and there just only being a couple female characters to bond with, and a lot of them were kind of lame, like Jubilee and stuff. I just it was like, man, I get like 5 characters to choose from, and 2 of them are lame, and guys get like 150 to choose from, and only 5 are lame. You
Right.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I totally get that. And I mean, and admittedly, I mean, it is obviously male dominated world. Especially like when it comes to the movies and those kinds of things. And for the most part, and like a lot of the comic readership that are out there, like the comic book readers, is mostly male. It's always dangerous to make those kinds of comments because there's always somebody like, oh well, I'm a woman and I read comic books, or you say that even about women.
It's supposed to
There's a
be
man
male.
like, I'm a man and I read this too. Like, okay, like,
It's mostly
yeah,
male, for
yeah.
sure.
It's like you're the exception, you're not the rule. um And so, like, how do you feel about things like that? Like in like knowing the instance of what happened with Captain Marvel. Not even bringing the Shazam thing into into question. Like, how do you feel about like what they did with that?
Just with Captain
Yeah.
Marvel.
As far as like
Yeah,
like what they did with Marvel, because he was originally a guy and they made it a woman in
right.
this movie, and even the fact that they kind of just swept Captain Marvel under the rug, let alone even Spectrum, who was actually the original Captain Marvel, even before
Mm.
Carol Danvers.
Well, wasn't Captain Marvel, wasn't he Shazam to begin with?
Yes. Well, I mean,
So
are you talking about
I
like the
mean,
DC stuff?
wait. Oh shit. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's a switch over from DC to
Yeah.
Marvel. My
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and yeah,
Um,
because yeah,
I
originally
don't
it was
think they.
Shazam, and then yeah, there was all that thing. Um,
Yeah, right. Sorry, that was my confusion. I don't think they overused Captain Marvel at all. She got one movie, a very small part in Endgame, and a very, very small part in Infinity War, like a second. So, I mean, it's not like she's all over the place and just monopolizing all the movies and stole the biggest roles and parts. She's barely
right,
used.
right, and and I think for me, like, I know the one thing when it comes to the Captain Marvel movie. With exception to with exception for a few people, like I said again, it's not a blanket statement for everybody, but obviously when the movie came out, a lot of people were more upset comments that Brie Larson had made in that Women in Films, awards ceremony. More people were upset about the movie and her in those statements than they were about the actual movie. So they didn't like the movie already off the bat just due to that. And I'm not even talking about review bombing or anything, but that in itself kind of started the movie off on the wrong foot for a lot of people because they didn't like her comments. Um, and
No, nobody likes their stars to be political because that makes people have to
right.
choose.
Right. And how do you feel like um have you I'm guessing you probably know what her statements were in that thing too, right?
Hmm,
How
yeah.
do you feel about what she said?
I think that any woman who voices their opinion on these subjects will come off wrong because I have no hatred towards anybody. I don't think that my opinion is gold, nothing. But even when I voice my opinions, I get like jumped on by a handful of people. Like just because I think one way means it has to be
Right.
that way. I think girls say things and automatically everybody goes, "Oh, they're hormonal and they want everything and they want to change everything," and so they automatically take it negatively. And also, she wasn't very good at communicating what she wanted, but I do think she was just only trying to help.
Right. And that's like me too, like her comments that she made, and I've talked about this several times, like the point that she was trying to make, I get and agree with. But I think almost every single word that she said to say what she was trying to say was really was just said the wrong way. It was all presented the wrong way. Because like when she's saying that, like, like about that movie, like it's not made for whoever. Like, I understand what she's saying there. It's supposed to be more relatable for a certain audience, more so than maybe like me when I was 22 years old. Now I probably relate a lot more to it now that I'm older and I'm a father and things like that. So I think what she was trying to say was right. Just how she said it was off base, and it was really what makes
Well,
people more mad than anything.
here's a perfect example why I think that pretty much anything she says is going to make anybody mad. Like she can't speak. She's already in the middle of something. She's already rubbed so many
Yeah.
people the wrong way, but there was an interview with her and she was with Anthony Mackie and Thor. So they were all talking and she was in the middle and they were like, "Who's the most powerful Avenger?" And she goes, "Well, Captain Marvel, I am." And Thor and Anthony Mackie got super butthurt, and the whole thing was really weird and awkward, and they were rude to her, and she got defensive about it. When I think all she was trying to say was, well, not like I'm stronger than you guys, which that's how everybody took it. I came in, I'm just stronger. When I think she was just voicing an opinion that Captain Marvel in that movie is
Right.
stronger than
Right.
Thor. And it was just a true statement that just everybody took as, "Oh my gosh, she's saying she's better than all these guys who have been in the MCU for so long." And it just got blown into a whole thing when it was just a simple answer of yes, because she was more
Yeah.
powerful. But that's the writing. She didn't choose to be more powerful. They didn't say, "Hey, hey, Brie Larson, do you want to be the most powerful Avenger?" No, they were like, "Do you want to be Captain Marvel?" And she took the part that was written for
Right.
her.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And I think that's kind of one thing. I guess maybe I'll ask your thoughts on that, because I think one of the things is when it comes to that, like I remember the interviews you're talking about there is I also think that when it comes to all this stuff, because we see all this nerd wars, culture war stuff going on out there. I think as much as the media does it too, I think even we as fans look far too into a lot of these interviews and things. Not only just to pick things apart to build theories or whatnot, but also like into what these people are saying. And I think a lot of the times, as much as we should listen to people's what people's words are, I think sometimes we put too much weight into people's words as well, and I think it kind of sometimes leads to misunderstandings, and even people getting upset over things.
Well, I think there's one thing I thought about before we came into this chat, and so polar opposite, we've got Democratic and Republican. Straight up, I'm not knocking either side, and it doesn't matter, but for the most part, most of the actors and actresses are more liberal and lean towards the Democratic side of things. Artists seem to be
Right.
that way, and so but they make their opinions known now with social media, which we used to not know their political opinions. And I think with them mostly dominating it on one side of the thing, it makes anybody who's on the other side, like Republicans, feel bombarded or ganged up on, or like they have to support these people in their movies that they want to watch, but then they feel like that they're being gypped into supporting a liberal point of view. And I don't think that it has been fair that people have to choose in a political realm of things with their nerd, fandom.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's kind of one of those things that, like, cuz like I get it, because really what's going on when we're talking about being political, we're talking about the real world. And the real world is what we all live in, and that's what affects us all. And that's why I get why people get so upset or so passionate about when they hear and see these things being done by these people that they see on screen. Because you're like, hey, and that's the thing, is like people are like, hey, I'm paying you to watch your movies. Just shut up and act. Shut up and sing. Shut up and make comic books. And which I get that argument, but at the same time, is it not just as easy to just let it go and be like, okay, like, I don't like what this person said. They're taking a little too far. And if you can't separate the artist from the art, is at that point, I mean, can you just not support the art anymore?
Well, I can, because like I love Tom Cruise as an actor, most all his movies since the beginning of time with Legend,
Yeah.
But he's a freaking weirdo, and I do not support that human being in any way, shape, or form. But I will never diminish his acting capabilities and his wonderful movies just because he's a freaking
Right.
weirdo.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because Tom Cruise, he's a weirdo. Let's not even
Yeah.
get into Ezra Miller.
And see Ezra Miller doing that stuff, that didn't bother me either. And honest, but if I did not mind his Flash, so um that's if I did mind his Flash, I don't know, that could have rubbed me more of the wrong way. I am a Grant Gustin Flash fan.
Yeah, as I'm saying, I thought he was okay as Flash. I don't like. Here's the thing, when it comes to Ezra Miller, like, he's a good actor. Like, he's like legitimately a good actor. I've seen him in several movies. He's good, but he's definitely a weirdo.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
weirdo. Anyway, so I like to draw the line between all my views in the movies because I didn't have anything to watch really growing up. I watched a couple old things like the old animated Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings and Legend and Flight of the Dragons and The Last Unicorn and stuff like that. But those were all on VHS, and that's all I got. So I really like, it's easy for me to separate it all because I'm just happy I get to watch
Right.
it.
So then let me ask you then, because you kind of brought that up a couple of times, like about how you grew up. Like, what is your background? I mean, if you don't mind me asking, as far as like as far as things like that, like, was it really religious? Were your parents really political or anything like that? Or like, how's that all
I
come about? Or is it just economically, you guys just didn't have the money to afford the entertainment things, or your parents just didn't put much stock into it?
Um, I grew up Mormon in Idaho in a town of about 350 people spread over a 5 mile radius, and I was homeschooled and only allowed to go to church and
Okay.
seminary. And the closest Walmart was 80 miles away, closest stoplight was 18 miles
Okay.
away. and I was homeschooled in the middle of nowhere and never did anything.
Okay, so you were pretty much grew up in the country in a small. I mean, not you can't even say the small town. Like it was. I mean, would they even say a
It's very
township?
suppressed, very suppressed place. But I mean, like it's old school, like women. Anyway, it is is back hills.
Okay, so you kind of grew up in this kind of environment where women are basically more subservient to men in the first place. Then
Oh yeah, like I had lots of neighbors with 10+
okay,
kids.
and so then how does that make you feel with everything that we see going on in the world now? As far as like like obviously over the last 30 years, like the women's liberation and everything, and how that's all coming. Like when you were growing up, did you see that? And just like knowing how you grew up to how you are now, how does a lot of that make you feel?
Well, and personal, I mean, that's a great point to make. That people's upbringing dictate how they are in life, and which way they lean, and what they like, and what they like to watch. And so, for sure, my upbringing made me all, I'm like, yeah, change the the word woke that nobody likes, which I actually don't like myself personally. I think it's
Yeah,
terrible, so I don't like to use it. But I think that that would be one of the reasons I am like that, because everybody barefoot and
hmm
pregnant, and that's all that's what you
right.
do.
Right. So yeah, and that's what and that's kind of why I asked, because I'm like, for me, ultimately, that's what a lot of things come down to with the world and what's going on, is the fact that we all have different upbringings, and that's ultimately what decides how we're gonna feel about the things in and around the world around us, and how we react to them. Because like when I was growing up, like
Yeah,
I grew up in a small town. I grew up in a small town as well, and it wasn't as small as where you grew up by any means whatsoever. But I grew up in a small town in Kansas, and like I grew up 13 miles out in the country from the main city, where I lived at. And so I had to be bused to school and things like that. But we were still close to the city, and I had a lot of friends in the city. When I was first born, we lived there in town and everything. So it's something that I totally get. Like growing up out in the country, I totally understand that. And so I grew up out in the country, and my parents were always around. My dad worked nights, my mom worked days. My dad would be asleep during the days when we'd get home from school if he was asleep. My grandma lived right next door on the other side of us, but my uncle lived over there. So I kind of grew up the same way. And I do know one thing that for me when I was growing up, because I'm mixed race. I've got so many things in me, it's ridiculous.
I have a mix. I'm like native and Irish and a handful of other things
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
and
Tan in the summer and pale in the
yeah, yeah,
winter.
I'm kind of the same way, and honestly, I think that's where a lot of things stem from too. Is a lot of the problems going on in the world is that I don't think people really know their heritage, and they don't dig into it, and they don't look into it. So you just look at the color of your skin, and that's it, and nobody, and I think that's a big problem. But for me,
Hey Trent, I just want to say hi to
yeah,
everybody real quick, like Stormbreaker and Jason and Wayne and Mike and Captain Pennsylvania. Just thank you everybody for coming and supporting us. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely. Thanks.
And Lavas. Can't forget Lavas.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody for being here. Absolutely. I mean, it's a great community that's been built here. Not only people that like I've kind of brought around myself, just from I guess just reaching out and meeting people, however you do online, but also from obviously from people like the Josh over at the Den of Nerds and everything. I mean, I know when I found that community, it was something I really liked. Like it was something completely different about the vibe when I started watching the videos. You know what I mean? I started watching the videos, and I'm like, I like this. What he's doing here, man. Like the environment that it's creating, and then kind of going along the way, we kind of started seeing people in the chats, and I think one of the first people, like one time, I think I won the nerd card question, and I think Josh actually said, and they're like, oh, Second Street Marvel One is like this guy's always in the chats and this and that. I was like, He's got his own channel, this and that. I was kind of like, oh, holy shit, like,
And that's why we all love Josh, because he does that. He makes you feel like you're not just another one watching, that you're important, and he talks to
right.
you, and that sets him
Yeah, and
apart.
I was kind of like, oh man, like this dude's seen my videos, and I was like, all right, I was like, sweet. So so just going through there and meeting people. I think Tara was one of the first people I really interacted with in the comments sections, and then it kind of became more and more, and then started doing they started doing Josh started doing the live streams and everything, and I noticed it's growing the community even more. And I think a lot of that is because you do get people on live streams and create that interaction, and it grows the community. And that's really kind of how I found you and got interested in
Yeah.
you and wanted to bring you onto the show. Um, because the first time I really remember seeing you in some of the live streams came at this really weird time. There was some things going on with just within the nerd community and everything. Well, and what had happened was there was a lot of and again, I hate some of these terms. There was a lot of trolls out there, and
Oh, I get that so bad online. Holy
yeah,
cow.
and so and at this particular time there was this particular group of people who were going out there doing a lot of it, and I remember seeing you in the live chats and you would kind of interacting and just like some of the things you were kind of saying, like, man, I can't decide if this is like real, if this is one of the trolls that's been following us around, or if this is somebody that's. And then as time goes on, like, because I think when I really first started noticing you, it seemed like you were a little more. I wouldn't even say touchy, but a little more.
Oh, so I
Were
was.
you
Actually, to be honest, I
okay?
was. Seriously, Josh recommended a book, and it's called The Four Agreements. And there was a thing I was having some issues in his chat, what you're talking about, I would imagine. And my feelings were hurt. And I was just like, what? I can't speak here. And he had me read this book. I listened to it, and everything changed. I was able to mellow it out, take everybody else's opinions, not just my own, and see a wider perspective of things. And it made me able to interact with everybody
Okay.
better and whatnot. So that did happen. I did have an issue for a
Okay.
while.
Well, and see, and that, and that's what I wanted to ask you about, because I noticed at first it seemed kind of like that, and then it seemed like you kind of got into the group, and everybody, realized, and I know, like, for me, it's one thing because if I upset anybody, like, I know and I totally get it because I go into chats, I just like to have fun. The other thing that I absolutely do know is that people look far too much into comments made on social media. And I'm not saying that I always play into that, but most of the time I just like to go in and have fun. And I will say, a lot of times I will make probing statements to see how people react to them, because you never really know. Because I've a lot of times I've found ways to. And you kind of do this growing up in life, especially somebody like me who's like, I like people and I like talking to people and I'm a people observer, but just little things that you can say that will like get certain reactions out of people to see, like, okay, is this person like, where are they at, where are they, just kind of dip your toe in the water to see where a person is at mentally, like their mental state, or how they feel about this or how they feel about that, um and just little things. But I remember seeing you in the chats, and I was like, man, I'm not for sure, because there was definitely this troll that was going around following a lot of people into live chats and saying stuff, and that's why I was like, man, I'm not for sure. And then eventually, like I said, you kind of got in the community. I'm like, okay, well, no, I guess I was wrong. I guess I was wrong. And then I do notice as we've kind of got along, and that's why I invited you to the shows, because I noticed I seen you, and I think even Captain Pennsylvania, which I'm gonna line up a time to get him on here as well. Um,
Yeah, Kim and Jason, they're fun. They actually see a lot of things my way as
right.
well. Not
Yeah,
everything.
and see, and that's where, because I wanted, one thing I noticed was like in one of the streams was, and I noticed this in a lot of streams, is a lot of people always saying like, oh man, like I don't say things a lot of times because like people are gonna disagree with me, and I don't want to get in fights with anybody or anything like this, and like I get that, because a lot of people don't want the discourse and all that stuff, let alone fighting with weirdos in the comment sections on videos. It's a little weird. And that's why I was like, it kind of made me think like, I think there's a time where we need to get a space where we can just sit here and talk and just say whatever we want to about stuff, because I know we get we get these things and we see, you like this and you like that, but somebody says something or this thing you like, just all these things, they kind of fester up and we never really say them. And then it's really prevalent when you see things, because obviously you said you're a Star Wars fan too. So
Oh, and I did forget to throw out Star Trek and Stargate. I am like just oh man, a gigantic
are
fan.
there are there any other nerdy things that you're into that might have toxic fandoms in them that we should toss into the pile?
Um, as far as toxic fandom, my other favorite thing is D&D. I have not found it toxic, but you could ask and see if maybe anybody else has.
I was gonna say, I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure it's happened. Yeah, and the thing is because obviously, you see, and the biggest example is obviously with like the fandom menace out there, and then you got the Raylo shippers and everything else out there. That's just the easiest example, because that's the one that seems to be more prevalent right now. How are your like, and that's kind of where we're at here with stuff, is like when it comes to this fandom stuff, like how do you feel about things like that, like all the fighting within these fandoms going on there?
The Star Wars one hurts my very soul. Um, my favorite thing to talk about, to read about, because there's more of a fan base to talk about than like Star Trek and stuff. I get very few people here and there, and it is just become it's just become miserable. It just utterly miserable. I don't care if you ship people, like shipping them, like relationships and stuff. I don't care if you want them to what you think of Raylo and whatnot, but to in real life to think those two human beings need to be together and you're gonna fight because they're not. I can't wrap my brain around it. I just can't.
Right. Yeah. I totally understand that. And that's like for me, because like when I really like, once I started my YouTube channel and I really started getting in and mingling with people and kind of getting into the whole fan community stuff, because before that, like, I'm just a fan of stuff. That was it. I never really got on YouTube or online or anything and dealt with that. Like, the only thing I really did was I got on Facebook and busted my friends' balls on Facebook. That was about it. But then I got here and I noticed once I started my channel.
Just pointed out that Star Trek does have a
Oh
toxic
yeah.
fandom,
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
he's right.
Yeah.
There's the battle between the Trekkers and the Trekkies.
Yes.
Just
Yes. And what I noticed was, like, I got on Twitter and I started seeing, even on YouTube, seeing all this stuff, all this beefing going on with everybody, and I'm like, are people really fighting about this? Like, about these movies? Like, I get if you don't like a movie, and that's fine, but like these people are really going at it.
they
Yeah,
really are.
and I'm seeing all this
I
stuff, like
can't give it
it's
that.
kind of crazy to me. It's a little bonkers, but also at the same time, even like when I started, even Josh used to say that he thought I was part of the fandom menace, and I'm like, I get it. Like, I'm not part of the fandom menace, but I get why anybody would make that would have made that assumption, because a lot of the people that I was talking to and interact with and everything on Twitter, and just mostly through my Second Street Marvel thing, a lot of them are people in the fandom menace. And really, when it comes down to it, and I was talking about this on the stream the other day, is a lot of my sense of humor and the way that I am really is more in line with how most of the people there are. Have fun, make I make off the wall jokes too, man. All of that stuff, like like who I am, like who I actually am, really is kind of more with a lot more of how them guys are. I just don't see, like, the only reason I never really identified with any of that stuff when people would say that, oh, hey, you're part of the Phantom Menace or anything, is because I'm like, I'm not, though, because like for me a lot of it is part of like partially presentation. I don't want to present myself like that, like how they do. And not all of them do the same thing either. Not all of them present themselves bad. But there's a big misconception with who a lot of the people in like the fandom menace. Let alone, we could even say that about Raylo shippers as well. That it's all like that. People just are just like that, and I'm like, I like. And my thing is like, I can't. I'm not really a flag waver. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just a nerd. I want to enjoy what I enjoy.
And me too. But and where I come from, there were no nerds. I mean, I think seriously three, and there was nobody to talk to about anything. If you didn't hunt or fish or care about, I don't know, guns and pickup trucks, you didn't really have any friends or do much there.
Right. Right. And
And so that's why it's like I understand everybody's point of view on why you don't like change with change. I just don't think it's worth fighting about because if you think about it and look at my past on why I like to see Wonder Woman not just a lowly secretary and just this wonderful powerful woman, and then given a couple other roles to women and people of minority because I grew up in like I might as well have been in the 50s, you
right.
know. Um, and so if you just have to have some empathy for other people's situations that had them, you know, that made them like what they
Right.
like.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that like a lot of people don't take into consideration when it comes to these kinds of things, and that's kind of why you know, like you said, why I asked that too, is because we do all have different backgrounds. We don't all like the same things, and a lot of times these are the things that really make the bigger distinctions that help make those bigger distinctions between why we like what we like and what we don't like, and why you don't mind seeing race or gender swapped characters and other people do. Um, a lot of those
And
things.
there was no other races where I grew up. There was only whites and
Right.
natives. And so there was like one Chinese family and they owned the Chinese restaurant. There was like a Mexican family and they owned the Mexican restaurant, and that was I mean, there was nothing. So I'd love to see more, you
Right.
know, like I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I live in like near
Right.
Seattle.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and that makes sense too, because like where I grew up at in Kansas, like there's a lot. It's mostly white people and a lot of Mexicans. Very few black people. And I know where I grew up at, like pretty much most of the black people that were in town where I lived at, you knew who they were. You know, you knew them, and
Oh
and not because
yeah.
of anything bad, just because there wasn't many of them. There wasn't many of them that lived there.
Yeah. And I don't like living
Yeah.
like that. That is the most boring, eat potatoes and beef all the time, boring way of
Yeah,
life.
and see to me, and that's why I say when I see like some of the movies and some of these things where they do some of that stuff, and not necessarily in the comic book movies, but like in other movies where they you know in the stories where they change different characters and stuff like that, like Jack Reacher, you know, like Tom Cruise, Jack Reacher wasn't that short, like oh come on, but I like seeing all the different walks of life and things like that. You know what I mean? I'm into that, and where I grew up at, it was very much kind of like that too. I wouldn't say that it was like racist, but like when like when my parents were growing up, you know, my mother is Mexican, my father is a whole Native American, just a whole bunch of other stuff too. But the thing is like they were like their relationship was looked down upon, you know, and all those kinds of things still in that town. And you know, and obviously I'm mixed race, and here's a huge thing too, is like I grew up mixed race, so and this was something I was talking with somebody else about too, is like I grew up mixed race, so a lot of times I see people see things out there, and one of the channels I follow, Young Ripper 59, it's something that he pointed out too, and I noticed it too, is you see people who come out with these outrageous statements, talking about people being like just like the silly racist stuff, is it's always like the half, like somebody that's like half black, or like myself, like half Mexican, stuff like this, that's making the bigger deal about the race issues more so than the people who are full. And I'm like, I think I know why that is because like when I was growing up, I got it from both sides. I wasn't
Right. They
Mexican.
don't have
I
a
wasn't white.
yeah.
White people said I was just a Mexican. The Mexican kids were like, "Oh, that kid's just the white boy." So, you know, growing up like that, you start, I think a lot of people feel like, "Oh, well, I know, but like I get it from both sides." And, you know, and the thing that I still ultimately think of is like, well, yeah, I get it from both sides, but there are people out there who get the full load from everybody. They don't get, there is no two sides. You know, their two sides is like they
Oh
got one
yeah.
side, and it's coming from every direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't fit in with the redneck white side, and I wasn't native. That my native wasn't that native, and I didn't fit in anywhere. and then I was homeschooled, so I was very awkward
Right.
when I was around people. And my growing up, this was not my last name, but I went by my stepdad's last name, but that it wasn't my actual last name, but it was
Mm-hmm.
DiFrancesco. And my nickname was Misty Dipshit Fresco the Hermaphrodite. And I got beat up all the time. Like all the
Right.
time.
Yeah, I can
And
imagine.
and so I just to get away from that and to see how the world really is and all the difference and all the color and all the flavor and all the different stuff that can be on TV. And then people get mad and they want it back the way it was. And I'm just like, what? That's all I've ever
Right.
known.
So knowing what you went through, like as a kid, like how do you think that like how does that like how do you feel about all that about that, and then you seeing what's going on in the world?
Oh, that's terrifying for me. The idea of things going back to the way I grew up is the most terrifying thing in the world for me. So I don't dig it. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I totally understand that. I get it. Um, yeah, and that's how like because even just knowing what I went through with some of that stuff, and I'm like I can imagine what somebody else goes through, and I don't care if it's whether it's because if you're black or if you're white, because we can even see these days, people are demonized for being white, and it's like it's okay to make fun of white people now, just and I could easily argue about that thing too, because I got a lot of friends who get offended by the white people jokes too, and like I get it, but you know what? For years, everybody made fun of the black guy. I've made fun of the Asian guy. Made fun of the Mexican guy. Oh, white people get
yeah,
made fun of too. Oh,
part.
and
Man.
constantly I feel myself patting myself on the back and rubbing myself and making myself feel better. And it's confusing to me. I don't know how to feel about it.
I'm gonna answer Stormbreaker real quick. When I was young, I everybody wore like the same kind of clothes, which were tight Wranglers, big belt buckles, tank tops, and I wore like Jenko pants and baggy Thrasher t-shirts. And so I didn't fit the feminine mold there.
I get that.
And that's why I got that nasty
Yeah,
nickname.
I get that, and yeah, and just like Lavis Blackman said here, and I mean that's the nail on the head right there. Is children are cruel, 100%, and that's why like I even on a stream the other day I read some stuff that a good friend of mine from back home had wrote on his Facebook talking about some stuff, and he was talking about in like being he was talking about being a POC and how he was on this work site and his boss had made disparaging remarks to him, racist remarks actually. I don't even know that they would have been racist, but just everything that he came out there and said, and he was talking about it, and I'm like I get where he's coming from, but he's off base because a lot of the things that he was talking about that he was feeling bad about with everything going on. I'm like, but that was your fault. You played into that. When you go on to the job site and your boss says, hey, where's my what is it? Where's my special Mexican or my number one Mexican?" And you don't turn around and say something to your boss, I really kind of feel that's on you at that point because you allowed that to happen. When
But but some people don't feel safe with that. And if your boss is in control of your money, I will tell you right now, as a woman who was a single mother and has had to work her hands to death her entire life because I had no education and I've just been worked to the bone and just had to do whatever I was told, I would have never had the guts to tell my boss not to do that. So I definitely disagree with that statement
See,
right there.
and I'm okay with you disagreeing with that because here's the reason why is because even just my kids are a perfect example. And kind of where I was gonna wanted to go with this too is the fact that people are different. Because where you've had that and you're in that situation, you don't want to say nothing because it threatens your livelihood. You've got
Mm-hmm.
your kids to worry about. You've got yourself to worry about. You kind of need the job. Um, so obviously,
So the man of power can say whatever he wants and he knows it, and nobody can say anything to
right.
him. that puts it back on that person, not the person who's
Right.
getting it.
And that in itself is a distinction, and that's where I kind of look at like I get the situation, and believe me when I say a lot of people, I've been accused of being insensitive, and it's something that I will never argue against neither, because I can't say that I'm not. But along with that, I'm also very understanding of a lot of stuff too. Like you're saying, you had a situation too. If your boss said something like that, you couldn't say nothing to him. You wouldn't because of that, because of the kids and everything. Were me, uh, the way I was raised and everything, and what my parents told me, I would absolutely never put up with that. If my boss said that to me, oh,
Yeah, but my parents taught me never to say
right,
anything. And if a guy hits on you, to be flattered, if to wear tight clothes, to get what I mean, I got raised a completely different
right,
way. And so that in no way, shape, or form could have ever come out of my
right.
mouth.
Yeah, and see, and that's why I say like, and that's where I say my thing always comes from understanding, because like the way I was raised and everything is like, and my parents didn't necessarily raise me to be like, oh, you say something, or you be terrible, or anything like that, or just to be out of line or anything. They didn't say that. But it was basically always stand up for yourself, do what's right, be a good person. Um, and so like me, somebody says something like that to me, I'd do like I guarantee you I'm putting my boss on blast, and okay.
Dennis, get her up the stairs.
No
Sorry,
problem.
my kid's doing stuff she's not supposed to.
But like the way I was raised, like is kind of like, you stand for yourself, you say what you feel is right, you say something bad, say something, do something. And also, but I also grew up with stories of like, one time when I think my mother was pregnant with my father. And this is kind of the stories I grew up with. My mother was pregnant with. I think my mother was pregnant with. Did I just say my mother was pregnant with my father? My,
You
yeah,
said your mother was pregnant with
my
your
mother was
father.
pregnant with my sister, and my father was at work. That's what. But he was at work, and my mother was pregnant. They just bought it. They just got their house, and they were there. She was pregnant and everything. Obviously, bills. They got bills and stuff like that. Well, my father was a concrete truck driver, and they would get. He got one of the days he got back to work. Got back from work, doing his delivery, he cleaned out his truck, his mixer, and everything. Went and parked, and he's pretty much done for the day. Well, the boss comes over there and tells him, and says, and hands him this broom and dustpan, and says, "Here, go sweep the parking lot." And my father just looked at him. He's like, "What?" He's like, "I just got done cleaning my truck. I'm like, I'm the driver, a concrete truck driver." And the boss turned to him and looked to him, and handed him the broom and dustpan and says, "Sweep the parking lot." And my father just said, "No, that's not my job." And the guy just turned to him and said, "Look, your wife is pregnant. You just bought a house. I own you." And my father, and the guy went to hand my father the stuff. My father just had his hands open, let the stuff fall to the ground, looked at the guy, just turned around and walked away from the job right there. So like,
Yeah, see, I never had like a home to go back to if I fell on my face, so that was never an opportunity for me. I could never stand up for my rights to sacrifice a
right,
job.
and let alone even if you did and your parents took you, and they'd probably be like, "Oh hell no, you did what?"
Yeah, but I didn't have a place to
Right.
go if that happened. There was no parent, like I didn't have a parents to move home to.
Oh, okay, yeah, and
So some people can't like stand up for their rights and take a shot to a job or lose a job because they might be on the
right.
street.
And see, and to me, and again, this is something that my parents really did kind of ingrain in me, is the fact that, what, everything will work out. You know, Pretty much it came down to, don't let people treat you like that, and honestly, just don't let other people be treated like that neither. Because the one thing that they always stressed to me was humility. We're all human, we all make mistakes, and all those kinds of things. So, So again, these are the little kinds of things that are the that really become the kinds of things when we get into these fandoms that people don't really think about and recognize when we get into some of the conversations about things like that, about why you do or don't like gender swaps in movies, race swaps and things like that, is because every single person out there has a different background. They have different ways of feeling about things when it comes to things like that, and and I think that's one of the things like I really hope to accomplish with things like this is where we can get people together and talk about these things because I know like I wasn't always the way that I am as far as like some of the things that I know now and do just through experiences. You know, my parents did the best they could to raise me the best they could to be able to handle life and to be able to survive in life. And I think while they molded me, the world around us forges us. You know, it,
Yeah, and it sounds like you had wonderful parents to teach you wonderful things. Not everybody gets that
right,
option.
right, and that's something, you know, and that's something I actually very much tell my kids all the time because we live right across the street from the school they go to. I see, believe me, I see the parents, I see the kids, I see the interactions of the parents walking the kids to the school. I see a lot of that stuff. And I'm a people watcher, so I notice and observe a lot. But one of the things I always tell my kids, you know, because I hear, you know, from other parents here at the school, you know, these talks about bullying and stuff that's going on there. And I ask my kids, I'm like, hey, do you see this stuff? Have you heard any of this stuff? And, you know, they're like, no, I haven't seen or heard anything like that. And, you know, I always tell them, like, if you see stuff like this or hear stuff like this, say something, do something, don't put up with it. If somebody's bullying you, you stand up for yourself, and that's pretty much what it is. But I said, but also the most one thing I always tell them is like, I don't want you don't have to be the smartest kid in class. I'm not worried about that. What I want you to do is I want you to be a good example for the other kids out there because not everybody is as fortunate as you are. You have mom and dad at home. We have literally bent over backwards to always be here for our kids. My wife, she works nights right now, and I work days. Um, so we did everything we could to be there for our kids. And you know, I always tell them like, you have your mother and father around. Some kids don't have their mother and father around. They might only have one. They might have none. They might
Or,
have
or they have a crappy mother
yeah,
and
and that's what I
father,
said.
or
They
crappy
might
one.
have parents at home who are abusive, and those things like that. So I said, chances are, if there's somebody out there that's being a bully, being mean to one of the other kids, chances are they've probably not got a very good home life. And you know, do what you need to do. Like, if you see somebody at school, you have the same thing too. If you see somebody at school that don't have any friends, it's okay to make friends with them, no matter what your other friends think, because everybody does have that different background. And while it's okay to be however you are, whoever you have to remember that not everybody is you. Not everybody has that same background, upbringing, no matter whether you want to call it privilege or whatnot. There's no two people that have it the same.
So that's why it's better to just be more like understanding of other people's point of views instead of so mad. You can not like them.
Right.
Just find and not like
Right.
them. Just don't have to be so mad and angry about it. Like I get berated quite often about my views, and I more than often don't say
Right.
anything.
And and yeah, we haven't even really touched on that. Like what kind of views would people berate you for?
So like if you say that you're finally happy that women are getting more roles, and then someone will say, well, women already had a bunch of new awesome roles. Specific, let's say specifically, I don't know, Star
Yeah.
Wars. You know, so you've got awesome Padme and Ahsoka and Shakti and Depa Balaba
Princess
and
Leia.
that and there's a list. Princess Leia. Let's put her right up there. But there's a list of them. And those are strong, wonderful, powerful women that women can. Do you want to know how long the guy list is on that
Right.
list? I mean, like seriously, there's a nonstop of names. I mean, I couldn't stretch my arms out far
Right.
enough.
Absolutely.
And so, and that's what the kind of stuff I hear. Or you're just a snowflake. You're just a
Yeah.
snowflake. You want to just change, and or white men matter too, and it's like, but you've always
Right.
mattered.
Yeah.
Like always, you've always mattered. I only just started mattering the last years in the United States since the women got the right to vote. But you've always
Right.
mattered.
Right.
People need to uh people just need to understand that people just want to be even and appreciate that, or just not. You don't have to be berated for your opinions is
Right.
all. I'm accepting of guys who have their opinions. They're like, I don't like that all this stuff is being taken away from me, and that's okay. You're right to have that opinion, but once you start yelling at me over it, then it becomes a shame on you.
And I like the way you word that. You said even, because there's a lot of people always say equality, and I like sometimes I feel like I nitpick words, but because like people always talk about like equality and stuff like that, and I'm like like to me that's just a false illusion because realistically there is no equality in the world whatsoever.
Well, we're different people. A male and a female, we might be the same race, but we might as well not
Right.
be. And there's no equality. Women can give birth. What do you guys want to be equal with
Right.
us? No. I mean, so so just
Yeah.
even.
Yeah.
Even Steven, man, just
Yeah,
fair.
exactly. Yeah, and I feel this. I feel the same way when it comes to those kinds of things. And here's the thing: is where like how do you feel about like about this? Because people say that about like the women not getting enough roles and all these kinds of things. Well, the women have always had the roles and all this and that. And then you take and you look at like I just want to use this as an example is like animes or anything like that. The women that they do like they've got to be hot, they've got to have boobs, big boobs, and be voluptuous and all that. How do you feel about that?
Okay, so being a woman who doesn't have the upper half at all, uh watching that tone down, that I like that. Having your hair like flowing in your face and big breasts up in your face, that's not a way to fight. That obstructs your vision, and these things get in the way. So if you're trying to get a really strong female who can fight and all this, why don't you dress her like someone who can fight and pull her damn hair out of her freaking eyeballs, because nobody can fight with their hair flinging across their
Right.
face.
Understandable. Understandable.
It's a joke. They're like, women are strong just because strong. And then if they don't make you a sex object, everybody's mad. Oh, but you're not a sex. You're not busty like they used to be. Where'd my busty tight clothes go?
Yeah. Yeah. I totally hear you. And see, and that's the thing is like for me, I'm kind of different when it comes to all of those kinds of things because like for me like I don't really mind anyway. Like I grew up like liking art, and for me it's just the human body in itself anyway. I don't care if a woman has
And I do want to throw it out there. Guys have to deal with that too. All the guy superheroes are like spectacular, and I would imagine maybe some might be like like I don't know. I didn't mean to just say women are the only ones that the guys have to deal with that
yeah.
as
We're talking about like somewhat unrealistic standards.
there you go. Yeah, we can throw it just not for females. It's just unrealistic standards in
Right.
general.
Yeah. And that's really what it is, for the most part, because like I said, like for me, like I grew up liking all the different arts. Like I said, the human body to me is amazing in the first place. I don't even want to get started. I don't even want to get started just because like I'm into health and working out and all that stuff. So like
Oh, me too.
so to
Me
me
too.
like the human body is just it's just like mind blowing in the first place. And then I think about the human body. I'm like, I love the human body. Okay, so like when I see a sexy female, yeah, I like to see that. If whether it's in a movie, in a comic book, on a cartoon or anything. But I also don't have a problem with seeing a girl who looks fit and just because like you're saying, like not all girls have big boobs, not all girls have big butts. Some
Yeah,
girls have big boobs and no
and the
butts.
ones don't have it. All the really strong women, they're not real. So if you're gonna go for like a real human body, strong women don't have
Right.
that.
And I think a lot of it too kind of starts to boil down to also what do you consider strength? Um, I will say certainly these days, especially this year, I would say the greatest strength one could have is mental capacity, and being able to navigate everything that's been happening in the world uh, over the past handful of months. I would say that's probably a bigger superpower than having big guns. Is
I definitely agree. Definitely agree. Everybody being on this lockdown and finding a new way of life and everything. It's definitely
Yeah. And that's why I say, yeah. I mean, it's and I think that's where some of this stuff kind of comes in at, like, okay, how is this person strong? And I think that's where people start to get upset, as we're like in the comic book. You change this person from being like, oh, they were big and buff and they were strong and this and that, but you changed them down to like you changed their strength. Maybe you change their strength, is kind of what it comes down to. Because I do know, like, for instance, being into like health and stuff like that, I know that just because some dude has big guns and has big legs that are like the size of tree trunks,
doesn't mean he's
yeah, it doesn't mean
strong.
that he's strong. Doesn't mean he can run around the block. Doesn't mean like I couldn't punch him in the face and hurt him good enough and take off running before he gets his hands on me to where he can't get his hands on me because he can't keep up. So
Yeah, I must say I don't mind the sexy superheroes or the toned down superheroes. That's all a fantasy land. So it really I mean I just don't mind it being toned down, but I don't mind it what it was
right,
either.
right. It's just if there was a little more, like you were saying, even representation of this stuff, throughout
Hmm.
it, more actual women heroes in the movies or even in the comic books, and not even more in the
Hmm.
sense that they have to go and create new ones. They've got the characters already.
No,
They can just use the ones that you have.
yeah, or create new ones. They don't have to switch the genders. They could just make a new one or use the ones they have for sure. I agree
Yeah,
with that
yeah,
statement.
absolutely, absolutely. And do you have any other hot takes that we might need to hear from you?
Man, you tapped me out for my takes.
Well, I wasn't trying to. I wasn't trying to.
No, no, I didn't rub anybody the wrong way. I love listening to everybody's point of views, and I never feel that anybody berates me anymore. I have a very, everybody's my friends. I was talking about the past and
Hmm.
whatnot, so
Yeah, and like I said, when I first seen you in the chats, like I wasn't for sure because it was at a time when we did have somebody that was going around in the nerd community, really giving a lot of people a hard time, and
actually, yeah, Josh actually thought it was me and pulled me aside and like wrote me a paragraph, and I ended up saying, "Dude, that wasn't me," and he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
oh really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
funny. That's funny because yeah, like I said, at first I thought I thought you were somebody completely different, and then I seen it.
Yeah, yeah. So you probably thought it was the same person. I got a lot. I definitely had a thing with that. Whoever that was must have sounded or looked or something like me. I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, what it was because it was just in the chats. It was in the chats, and I
Yeah.
think was your avatar faceless for a little while, maybe.
Yes, yes. I was just Ahsoka for years. I only showed my face recently with the
Uh
nerd
huh.
card challenge. I decided that everybody's gonna see me, so I might as
But did you
well.
did your avatar even have did you have a little avatar at all?
Yeah, yeah. It was
Okay,
Ahsoka.
all right. As I was gonna say, and that might have been what it was because obviously
Mhm.
the nerd the biggest nerd battles these days seem to be in the Star Wars realm, or caused by
Yeah,
that. And I think that's kind of what
yeah.
it
I've
was.
had people go. I've had people go, "Oh, you don't know anything about Star Wars. I can tell by your avatar." And I was like, "Wait, what? What? My Ahsoka avatar means I don't. I know like a lot about Star Wars.
Yeah.
What? You can tell from my avatar?"
Yeah, and that's something else I find funny too, is because I see the I see a lot of that stuff going on in there, and that I love to joke about that because to me it's the funniest thing is people say, oh well, you're not a real fan, you're a fake fan or some just all that kind of stuff. I'm like,
I get that a lot too. I'm a fake fan. I'm like, well, I'm a real, and I love, and I'm a fan.
yeah, and that's the thing is I'm like, what exactly is a real fan or a fake fan or anything like that? Or I mean, I like these are the things to me that I always want to draw distinctions to.
Yeah. Sorry, my childhood didn't allow me to grow up loving this stuff. It doesn't. diminish my, knowledge or ability to care about it.
Exactly. And that's what I say, because people are like, oh, are you kidding? I grew up, I seen Star Wars at the theater when I was 6 years old, and I've been doing all this and that. They're acting like, what was that guy? What was his name? Christian Harloff that went off. They're sitting there acting like him, and then you see these people. They treat somebody who just got into the franchise 2 years ago like they can't be real fans, like they can't be passionate about it neither.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And I don't think that's fair. I think that's pretty judgmental and
yeah,
small-minded.
and to
Uh, Allow people to indulge in it, like D&D, old game, been playing it forever, and now with the new fifth edition and the lockdown, everybody being stuck at home, there's a new like explosion for it, younger people, because the new edition has made it easier to play, and so people are now getting into it, but that doesn't, you don't take away from their
right.
enjoyment just because they didn't play the first couple editions, or they've just started, or whatnot. Just embrace the new people. More people liking something gives that thing more money, so they can make more of
Right.
it.
And that's kind of where I come from too. Is like I look at it like you're treating somebody who's just a newer fan, just because they're new to it doesn't mean they can't be as passionate. But also like kind of like you're essentially, I mean, you're gatekeeping. You're trying to keep somebody else out. You're trying to push them out. You don't want them there, but yet you want more of this thing that you want. But you can't do that without, basically the company of the thing that you like getting more. They can't give you more if they don't get more fans, because like, oh well, this thing is kind of stagnated. We're not going to put any more money into it.
Right. And so, I think everybody just love everybody and embrace, let everybody have their point of views, discuss it, disagree with it, but yet just know that everybody just wants the same thing. They just want to be buds and talk about it and have their views discussed and recognized, and everybody just should be just friends with each other, and take it as a fun
Right.
debate. You don't have to agree, and it can be fun to
Right.
disagree.
And see,
And everybody here knows it's fun to get Josh all
yeah,
riled up.
exactly. And see, and that's my thing too. Is like me, and I think that's why I kind of like this whole space in between, being in between all of this stuff, because I myself, I know I can handle all of that, any of the criticisms, and navigate all of those waters just fine. But I like to see all the different viewpoints. I like to hear people's different things like that, and just I'm one of those people. I do like the discourse. I like the discourse because of
Yeah.
what I can learn from it. Um,
It's fine to tell people get rude and
Right.
mean and
Yeah, and that's the
nasty.
thing, is like finding fun in the discourse. Can you do it? It's not, because the discourse, the arguing about the things that we like, isn't all about getting upset and calling each other a bunch of names. It has nothing to do with that. But that's when it really gets interesting, though. Honestly, is because you see that like what was it that tipped it there? What
If everybody was alike, it would be
Yeah,
boring.
and I think that's what it always comes down to, is like, what was that straw that broke the camel's back, and can we change that? Can it be redeemed? Like I'll start this one off. Anytime I hear somebody say Disney Star Wars, I know where they're coming from already, but can they? Can Disney win that fan back?
Well, there's Disney Star Wars with the sequel trilogy, and then there's Disney Star Wars with the
Yeah, right.
Mandalorian. So give them a break, man. They bombed the first one. I enjoyed it, but once the Mandalorian came out, I was like, oh, well, that makes that
Right.
poop. So, you know, Disney Star Wars, and they have so many good novels out. There's a lot of good novels in the Disney Star Wars section. So I give them props. They did bomb a couple things, but they're pulling it together. And we got Rogue One. How can anyone? I mean, Rogue One. That was so much fun.
I thought it was a
K2SO,
good movie.
and now there's a K2SO show. I mean, I'm like, what? That sounds wonderful. So there's pluses and minuses to Disney Star Wars. Let's throw them a bone.
Right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Okay, and before we go, how do I can't believe it's already been going for an
Yeah.
hour and 20 minutes. Before we go, I want to ask you, how do you feel about with everything going on? How do you feel about the cancel culture uh, aspect of things, and where is the responsibility when it comes to those things? Because the one thing I've talked about a lot here is like the comic writers. I see that there's like a bunch of these consenting adults doing they're having relationships with each other, and it seems like there's a bunch of people out there using each other to get into better positions, to get jobs and things like that. And it's all become part of this cancel culture thing too. And it's like, how do you feel all about that, and where do you think the line is should be drawn for
Do
personal
you
responsibility?
do you mean cancel culture is like shows getting canceled and stuff?
No, like the just like all the people out there when somebody does something wrong and everybody's like, "Oh, we need to get this person fired from their job. They should never be able to make a
Oh,
livelihood."
I get it. Okay, I see. Oh, Ezra Miller with what happened, cancel Ezra Miller as Flash. I think he's fine staying Flash. I think that could have been, I mean, I just think that was a crappy situation. So I don't think people should just be canceled right away. Everybody makes mistakes. I do believe. I mean, if somebody like murdered somebody, raped somebody, just brutally beat their wife, I mean, like, of course, that kind of
Right.
stuff. I'm not. I don't want to support
Right.
that. But I mean, some socially awkward artists have weird fan interactions or say some awkward stuff on TV. Cancel them? No, no, because a lot of these actors, I don't know if people notice, but there's a lot of pretty actors and actresses, but they didn't grow up that way. If you like stare at them, they're kind of knock-kneed or whatnot. So a lot of the guys in acting are shorter. Maybe they weren't the athletic type, even though they might have bulked up and look athletic. They probably didn't grow up that way. Superman's name was Fat Cavill.
Right.
So I mean, um, people just need to give people some room to breathe. Everybody makes mistakes, and unless it's just like utterly just horrendous, good God, unless you're perfect, you know, then be quiet. I mean, unless you have not made any of those mistakes, and you just but no, I do not believe in cancel culture for sure.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing too is I noticed like it seems like most people I know don't believe in it. The only people that I see that seem to really believe in cancel culture is really literally only people online on Twitter or Facebook. I don't really see it anywhere else out there. Like when I walk out in the real world, it's non-existent. And I think the same thing goes with for a lot of these things that we see out there. It's a lot of it's the media and people blowing things out of proportion, which is I guess you could say like alternate media, which is what like YouTubers like people on YouTube would be who are talking about these kinds of things. It's just really interesting with just everything going on in the world. Like I said, the world to me is just an interesting place. I like watching people, the way they interact, whether sometimes it can be disgusting, it can be very off putting, but for me, I always try my best to learn everything I can from the situation.
I do too. I do too.
Well, anyway, we've been going for an hour and 23 minutes. I suppose I've taken up enough of your time. We'll go ahead and let you go now. Is there any last thoughts or anything you wanted to say before you leave?
No, just gonna make a call out to all my friends who subscribed and supported me on your channel and came to listen to me talk for my, first big thing. I appreciate you all. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Trinity, for having me. I was very flattered, and I hope I didn't run anybody the wrong way. Let's all love each other, minus our
Well, I was
opinions.
kind of hoping that you would, dang it. and
Oh,
and
okay. Well, I might
and
have.
not for the sake of getting you in trouble with anybody neither.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think that. I didn't think that.
But yeah, it was great having you on. Yeah, like I said, I kind of got this idea to do this, and I figured you're one of the people I wanted to reach out to because I know that just having interactions and seeing just kind of how getting to know you in the community has been great. And seeing things like that, so I wanted to reach out to you. I was actually going to reach out to you sooner. It's just been so busy with things to get this done. But it was great to have you on and have a
I
conversation with you.
It was very fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. Hopefully, if there's ever anything else that you want to talk about, you want to come on the show, have something to say, anything, let me know. I'd be
Of
more than happy to
course.
have you on again.
Of course, I would love that. Thank you so much, guys. I am not subscribed to the channel, so I can't jump on and say hi to anybody. So I'll glad you guys have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you guys later in the
All right.
chats.
Well, we'll see you later. Thanks a lot for being here.
Bye.
All right, and you guys all have a very good day, and we'll see you all today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Wanted to do more of these. If there's anybody else out there you think that I should get a hold of and can bring on the show, let me know, because I would definitely like to do that for you guys, to bring you guys some more shows. Something like this. And if you guys have topics or anything that you would like specifically for me or any of the guests to talk about, please feel free to reach out to me. You can get a hold of me Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Second Street Marvel. You can even get a hold of me here on the channel in the comment sections and things like that. I don't know, if you ask me, I thought that was a good conversation. 90 minutes. I swear, when you get into a lot of these conversations with people, I swear you could go all day long. You could go for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, and not ever even know. We're sitting here having this great conversation, and already 90 minutes has gone by. But again, guys, thank you all so much for being here today. I do greatly appreciate that. If you have anything, any thoughts or anything on this show, the live chat is for members only. I'm guessing, I'm not sure how this works on YouTube, if this will be available for people to comment later once it's actually uploaded onto the channel and everything. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the show. Like I said, if there's anything else that you'd like me to do with these shows, or any topic specifically, please get a hold of me. Like I said, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. But that's all I have for today's video. You all have a very good day. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you all tomorrow morning. Later.